You've just accessed Hardware is Forever, your source for the expert insights, ideas, and innovations you need to do more in the electronics manufacturing industry. From optimization to operations, join us as we put the pieces together for a better approach to manufacturing. Let's go.
Welcome back to Hardware is Forever. I'm Chris Bentliff. Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech, and we're continuing our conversation on Deming and his 14 points, 14 principles of management. And Jay, we're talking about point 2. And as I did in the last episode, let me read it to you because then I have a first question. Point 2 is adopt the new philosophy. We are in a new economic age. Western management must awaken to the challenge, must learn their responsibilities, and take on leadership for change. So first of all, for background, he would have come up with this in the early to mid 40s. So interesting that we are in a new economic age and Western management must awaken to the challenge. And that is still true. That is never not true. But the first sentence is adopt the new philosophy. So Jay, from your point of view, what is the new philosophy?
Yeah, I think, Deming, even though he started out and he was an American citizen, a lot of his approach to manufacturing or processes was not accepted because it was all about just shipping product. So, if for example, if there's a factory worker doing things and there's a lot of rejects, it wouldn't be like management would say, what's going on with this? Let's look at the processes. Let's look at the tools. Let's look at training. Let's look at all these type of things to improve it. The only thing that they would say is, we're going to deduct you if you don't increase your quality. And then at that time, it was up to the employee to be able to find the solution while the supervisor or the manager or the owner sat in their office and collected the money. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where maybe Deming is talking about it, where it's not just that this approach and this philosophy is not just meant to be for the person who's actually doing the value add work. Right now the economy's changed. Is the person who's doing the coding, the person who's doing the manufacturing, the person who's doing the trades. It's just the person who's creating the marketing copy, stuff like that. It's not just that person who's creating it or making it or working on it. It is something that the managers have to buy into, and they have to adopt that. And that starts with leadership. If leadership doesn't take it, then it is not going to permeate through the organization. You are not going to be able to tell a worker to say, implement these Deming's 14 points, and I expect to see an increase in profitability and customer satisfaction. It has to be an organizational approach. That means the leadership and the managers must accept it, and they must be the ones who drive the transformation. It cannot be, it has to be something that's led, it has to be something that's demonstrated, and it has to be done through leadership and not done through the person who is doing the production, whether it's coding, manufacturing, trades, whatever it may be. It cannot be done by them.
Which is the challenge, right? When he says Western management must awaken to the challenge, what I'm hearing you say is that is the challenge. You have to do this stuff. What's interesting to me as I look at that is he says Western management must awaken to the challenge, must learn their responsibilities, and must take on leadership for change. Those are skill sets. Do you agree? That's not a default position for a lot of people, including a lot of managers who find their way into management because they've been around long enough or whatever. You have to be a person, as you point out, who can adapt, who can take on the challenge, and who can start to realize that it's not a bottom-up thing. It's a how are we leading and how is it trickling down thing. What do you think?
And I think the definition of leadership really changed at this time. And, in the 40s and 50s, I think there's a lot of business management, business leadership observations being implemented at that time. And it wasn't something where the owners or the managers the only thing they need is power and connections. It wasn't, they had to have the right character. And that character of humility, of curiosity, of care had to be embodied by leadership and managers to be able to implement systemic quality in the organization. And I think, when Deming talks about it, it's if they didn't adapt, they were going to lose market share. And the reality is that they didn't adapt. And history states that they did begin losing market share. And that's when all those things changed. So they had no choice, because at the end of the day, the people who did implement Deming's approach willingly started affecting business. So when he says they must, otherwise somebody else will. And that's what really happened.
What do you think is the barometer in this idea of must change? Keeping an eye on what the customer needs and is evolving, and how customer dynamics are shifting, or competitive dynamics and what competitors are doing and what is shaping the future, where you might get that, as we talked about in the last episode, that shiny object syndrome, where it's like, oh, we better do this because they're doing that. Which one do you think drives this discussion, customers or competitors, or some mix of both?
So at the end of the day, you're here you get the opportunity to add value to your customer. And that is paramount, and if I speaking just strictly financial aspect of it, they're the ones who provide the revenue and the opportunity for you to run your organization. So if your focus isn't on the customer, then you're really not listening to them and not supporting them. And there could be 1,000 different competitors doing 1,000 different things. Like, even in our industry, there's, we do circuit board assembly and box builds and all this kind of stuff. And there's so many different equipment manufacturers and different approaches and different infrastructure you can put in place, starting from a humidifier all the way down to a pick and place machine to a soldering iron. There's so many, fluxes. There's so many different ways of doing that. Now, if I want to stay ahead of my competitor, I'm going to worry about what my competitor has, rather than focusing on the customer. And as soon as I lose focus on the customer, I may start listening to their needs. I need to know where the customer needs to be, where they want to go. That way I can bring the innovation that they need to stay in the market and keep their market share, and also not be out innovated because of manufacturing technologies by their competitors. So I need to be able to look at what the customer needs and wants, rather than what our competitors are doing. Now, should I keep an eye on the competitors if there are good ideas? You always want to learn from it. You always want to observe what's going on. But I shouldn't pivot my business and add things because the competitors have it. If I do that, I think I'm going to lose focus on the customer. It's almost like playing to win and playing not to lose. There's two different philosophies, and I think if you have your eye on your competitor, you're playing not to lose. But if you have your eye on your customers, you're playing to win. Then
what a great sort of summarization of that concept that you came up with there. I love that. One of the ways that I like to think about as Deming positions these things is he almost has a built-in kind of start, stop, continue. You must do this, you must continue that, or you must sustain this. And in some ways it's either stated or it's inferred. And so you must stop doing that. What do you think are some, we have to stop doing this, if we stop doing this, not from a negative point of view, but then that will encourage this to flourish or that to grow? Like, what are some, I guess, symptoms of the illness if we can stop doing?
Yeah, so I think it goes into like communication and empowerment, like and consistency. It just comes down to that. Like, if we don't communicate what we want to do, if we don't empower our employees, and if we don't have that constancy, it's not going to happen, because you can't micromanage everything. You can't micromanage your way into great services and great quality. And that is the difficult thing, is how do you go about doing that? So I think there's some high level bullet points that we can talk about, and that as an organization we need to be aware of. Is, number one, everybody needs to know what their job responsibility is, so then they can get in the right mindset and they can start thinking about what I need to improve, what I need to do the task on hand, what suggestions do I have to improve, and how to communicate that. Because if we're doing different things, we don't know what we're going to do. We kind of we don't let ourselves get into flow. We don't let ourselves kind of become engrossed with the task at hand. And then when we don't do that, we can't think about ways to improve it. And we don't, we just don't know what we're going to, it's just, you're in a state of constant confusion. So I think employees understanding, the team understanding what they need to do and what's expected of them and what the responsibilities are is huge. And then the next thing is we have to, since we want to lead by example, we have to stop any type of bad things happening in the firm or wrongdoings happening in the organization. Ethical, moral, covering up issues, all those type of things. We just have to stop that because, again, it's easier to manage the truth, or you don't have to manage the truth, but you have to manage lies. And why put your organization and why put your effort in doing those type of things? So that's another thing that we can't, as an organization, do. Always keep training up to date. So if we have things that we've improved, but the training hasn't, that won't work. We have to update the training. So we're not, so that tribal knowledge, continual effort, continual improvement, it's all codified into the organization, and we can start building on and that, developing that flywheel that allows us to grow. Make sure that our instructions are clear, not vague. That way, without a doubt, people know what they need to do and know what the task at hand is. We can't accept any more defects, any more errors. If we do that, zero defects, zero errors is always the goal. So we just can't say, okay, that just happens all the time. That's not acceptable. We have to take and say, okay, perfection is our goal. This is the issue. Now what do we do? And then another thing is repair, rework cannot be accepted. Like, we have to do the job the right way the first time. We cannot inspect and rework our way into conforming products and customer satisfaction and profitability and a thriving organization.
A lot of what you share there is insidious, and like you said, we're used to some sort of ratio of inefficiency, and we just live with it. And you're saying, no, you can't do that anymore, or that happens all the time, or yes, some of those are going to break, but you can't do that. You can't just shrug that stuff off. Or even the wrongdoing in the firm, like, there's great big shiny things that everybody knows are wrong, but whatever. Talking behind other people's backs at the water cooler is going to lead to a healthy workplace. And these are things that you might not realize are happening because they're just kind of the status quo, or, we know it's always been that way, or the boss is dysfunctional in that way, and it trickles down and nobody's holding that person to accountability. And part of what I hear you saying is that's part of this conversation. You got to figure out how to stop doing that stuff.
Correct. I mean, it's not what I'm saying. It's Deming, and Deming has done it now. Is this interpretation sophomoric? Absolutely. Do I have a lot of experience with Deming? But this is lessons I've learned right now. Am I articulating them properly to the best of my ability right now? But in the future, it may change. Yeah. And
I love that too. In the future, it may change, as we set out several episodes ago to say, we're figuring this out as we go, which is part of the beauty of the conversation. And I think that's
so I think a lot of people get get caught up in jargon, like, we zero defects and customer satisfaction. And I think a lot of what Deming is saying is that you have to live this philosophy. This is not, you have to live the approach. You have to live it. It cannot just be some of those things that investors want it, and so we're going to do it, this company did it and they came out of nowhere and kicked our butts. So because they did it, we have to do it. And now, I'm the CEO or the leadership of the company. I tell my middle managers, hey, I'm good. You guys figure it out, and I expect changes. That is not the way that Deming's approach to building a high quality organization is. it has to start with every single person having the right mindset and the right approach. And that has to be adopted. If there's a single chink in the armor, sooner or later it will be exposed. And when it is exposed, it has for us caused serious harm to our ability to do business and satisfy our customers. So it is very, very difficult to do that. And then these principles and having those qualities is hard to have in one person, or even having this approach. So this is going to fail, and there are going to be iterative cycles, and there are going to be people that, I may not be able to do it today, but I have to trust the philosophy, because the universe and the customers will provide feedback, and employees and team members and suppliers will provide feedback. And I have to be open enough to be able to change, because these things that Deming says is really, it's almost against our fight or flight programming that we have. This is okay. Let's get past that and have a psychology of abundance. Now, if we have abundance, how do we make sure we don't waste abundance? And to get to that point is really, really hard. Adopt the philosophy is really, really hard. And that's why you need the constancy of purpose. And that's why you need to be able to be ready to say, I'm going to be wrong today, and I'm going to be wrong tomorrow, and I'm going to be wrong a lot, and be able to accept that and change that, and be patient enough to know that down the road, life will teach you the lessons that's needed. Now, I say this from experience, because when I started in the business, I thought I could adopt the philosophy. I read Good to Great, implement it, try to implement it yourself. I read Traction, try to implement myself. I thought I could do it all. And the universe kept on telling me I couldn't. And there is a process to adopting the philosophy. And again, like we talked about, the shortcut to doing that is, rather than having it on my shoulders and paying the stupid tax over and over and over again, surround yourself with great individuals and great leadership team that you can learn from and make you better, and demonstrate to you what kind of character you need to be able to adopt the philosophy. And I think that makes a big, big difference. Because if you don't have the purpose, and if you don't have a way to demonstrate it so that other people know how to implement it in their tasks, then this is all, a useless exercise and a waste of time. So I feel like adapting that philosophy I can understand why it's number 2, because that's probably the hardest. That is the next gate that individuals that are in the leadership team are not prepared for. To say that you're wrong and you can't do it any like this, because, typically in a lot of cases, when they used to make it, become the directors or the VPs, they made it, and then they get this syndrome of, I'm better than everybody else. I don't know what it's called, but they get this hubris, and to keep that humility is very difficult, and to get that combination of qualities, that sweet spot, is really, really hard. And that's why the leaders who succeed, there's a lot to be learned from them. And the leaders who are still trying to get there should be supported and motivated and encouraged. And the leaders who don't should be, put aside, because they just don't want to accept that challenge or want to know that they need to change and learn. They're not going to make you or your organization or your family or friend group, or anything better. So I think I understand now why adopting the philosophy is number 2. Adopting the new philosophy is number 2. And it is hard. It is freaking hard. As an entrepreneur who owns the business, operates the business, I can tell you it's a culmination of qualities that if you have it, you're very, very blessed.
Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech and a student of the universe, and is a really great guy to talk to about this stuff. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking forward to our next one as we get into point 3 and beyond of Deming's 14 principles. Thank you, Jay. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers and followers. Consider becoming one today wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Hardware is Forever is designed, tested, engineered, and built by the manufacturing experts at Amtech. Learn more and let us help you envision your next project with a free Design for Manufacturing assessment at buildamtech.com/DFM.